Some crimes just become legends, right? They're so audacious, so meticulously planned, they just capture everyone's imagination. But what if I told you that one of the most famous heists in history, a nearly perfect crime, was unraveled by one tiny, almost unbelievable mistake? Okay, let's get into the incredible story of the Great Train Robbery. All right, so picture this. It's the dead of night. A train is hurtling through the English countryside, and on board is an absolute fortune. Now, if you're the driver, Jack Mills, your heart has to be pounding. That signal way out here in the middle of nowhere, it's always green. He knew deep in his gut that something was terribly wrong. And as he brought that train to a stop, a master plan that was months in the making was about to explode into motion. So what was the prize? Well, inside that mail carriage was an almost incomprehensible amount of money. Stacks and stacks of used banknotes, which today would be worth a staggering £67 million. For the guys hiding in the dark, this was the score of a lifetime. And that's the big question, isn't it? A gang of 15 guys manages to stop a moving train and walks away with a fortune, all without firing a single shot. To really understand how they did it, we've got to rewind a little. Because, let's be real, a heist this precise doesn't just happen by chance. It was only possible because they had one critical advantage: a man on the inside. The mastermind behind all this was a pretty charismatic criminal named Bruce Reynolds. He knew he needed the absolute best, so he brought together two expert gangs for the job. But their most valuable asset wasn't a safecracker or some genius getaway driver. Nope. It was their anonymous source, a senior figure inside the Royal Mail who is feeding them priceless intelligence. And the first tip from this insider? It was a complete game changer. Because of a recent bank holiday, the mail train wasn't just carrying its usual load. On this one particular night, it was holding nearly 10 times the normal amount of cash. This wasn't just another job. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But the insider's next tip was even better. Honestly, this was the key to the whole thing. He told them that the specific high-value carriage scheduled for that night, the one with all the modern alarms, was out of service, and its replacement, an old reserve carriage with no security system whatsoever. The gang now knew exactly where to strike, and they knew no alarm would ever sound. So, armed with this perfect information, the gang executed their plan with total military precision on the night of the heist. But right in the final moments of their victory, they made one single fatal error. At 3 a.m., totally hidden by the darkness, they rigged the signal. They just put a glove over the green light and hooked up the red one to a simple battery. As the train grinds to a halt, they swarm the engine and they hit the driver, Jack Mills, over the head with a cold, hard iron bar. They then force the bleeding driver to move the engine and the cash-filled carriage a mile down the track to a place called Bridego Bridge. There, a human chain of robbers unloaded 120 mail bags in under half an hour. Right as they were about to vanish into the night, one of the robbers turned to the captured staff and gave them this chilling warning. He thought he was buying them more time, making sure their escape was clean. He had no idea it would become their undoing. That simple 30-minute warning, it basically told the police everything they needed to know. The robbers' hideout had to be within a 30-minute drive of Bridego Bridge. Suddenly, a huge nationwide manhunt shrank to just a 50-kilometer radius, and it led them straight to a quiet little farmhouse. So the gang celebrated at this place called Leather Slade Farm. They're dividing up the cash, listening to police scanners. Before they leave, they meticulously wipe the entire house for fingerprints. Then they pay a local guide to burn the farm to the ground to erase any final trace of them being there. They thought of everything, or so they believe. But here's the twist. The man they hired to burn the farm, he was a coward. He took their money and ran, leaving the farmhouse completely intact. And when the police finally stormed the property, they found that while every doorknob and glass had been wiped clean, the gang had forgotten about the Monopoly set they'd used for a celebratory game with real cash from the heist. Their fingerprints were all over it. And those fingerprints? That was a death sentence for the gang. They were matched against prior criminal records, and the culprits were quickly identified. The judge, he was determined to make an example of them. He handed down sentences of 30 long years in prison. The Great Train Robbery became this huge cultural phenomenon, but its legacy is pretty complicated.
It's marked by both infamy and, well, real tragedy.
The robbers, guys like Bruce Reynolds, they were basically immortalized as these anti-hero celebrities. Their daring heists became the stuff of legend. But the train driver, Jack Mills, he became a forgotten casualty of their ambition. That head injury he suffered left him with permanent trauma. He was never able to work again, and he died just 7 years after the robbery.
And that, right there, is the central mystery that still remains. The police captured almost the entire gang, but the one man who made it all possible, the insider who knew the train's schedule, its cargo, and its broken alarm, he just vanished. A ghost in the machine. Never caught, never named. And his identity remains the greatest secret of the great train robbery, a testament to a crime that was, in the end, almost